And welcome everyone to the Games XP podcast. We are here with episode 4. We're looking to talk about the semifinals, looking about how these teams got here, and then go a little bit into the finals. But first off, of course, I will let you all know I'm going to be your host today, Skyson. And joining me today is going to be Zayfrey and Daydreams. How you guys doing today?
If I may say so, that was a pretty cool little intro song there for the podcast. I like it. I wonder who wrote that.
Some genius out there had to have written it.
Yeah,
but good to know that's how you're doing. How you doing, Daydream?
I'm doing good. Just kind of hanging out.
Good to know. And as for everyone else out there, of course, this is let you know a little bit about our sponsor. We got Games XP, located in Decorah, Iowa. They're a small family-owned business that deal in video, card, and board games. Very well-rounded. Very good company. Check them out sometime if you're ever in the Iowa area. I would love to be in the Iowa area, which is not in Ohio. But, of course, we have other things to get to. So we are going to dive right into it because semifinals were hot. Semifinals were big. So let's talk Schism Purple Cobras first. We always watch that series. I cast that series. I don't know if you guys watched that series. Lots of people watch that series. But let's give me your initial impressions of what you thought about that set. Hit me up, Zayfrey.
Okay, that set was wild. I did not get a chance to watch it live, but because the NFG and White Lotus game was going on at the same time. But it was intense, lots of emotions, ups and downs everywhere. SKZ obviously came out on top in Game 5, so both series ending in Game 5 is wild. I'm super excited for finals.
I agree. So tell me a little bit about what you thought about the Schism Purple Cobras game, Daydream.
I thought it was really back and forth. Like both teams were showing that they came to play, they came to win. But on the day, it seemed like Schism wanted it more, and they showed that in that last game. You know, they just proved that they're not to be taken lightly, especially with the new roster.
I definitely agree. I think that what happened a lot in the set, going back and forth between games, you know, watching the way that was played by specifically the Purple Cobra side, I want to say they underestimated. I want to say there was underestimation on the side of the Purple Cobras. You definitely saw the way their gameplay sort of shaped. They took a very simple win in Game 1, and when Schism sort of brought the heat in Game 2, you could definitely tell that there was a bit of, things not coming together for Purple Cobras. They weren't really didn't seem like they were playing at full power, I would say, Game 2. Then Game 3, they tried to bring a little bit better. Schism said, by the way, we're still here. Took the game 2-1, took the series 2-1, and really put Purple Cobras on the back heel there to come back Game 4. But Game 5, Schism still pulled ahead. So I definitely think that the shift back and forth of Schism pulling ahead very early, putting Purple Cobras on the back heel, and then saying, we're going to take the set, I really think it played a lot into the hands of, Schism just coming out very dominant. So let's talk a little bit about the Schism roster. Of course, the roster is, moved from here and there, and we have seen now more of these new faces. We've seen a lot more of Tej in the AD carry role. We've seen a lot more of No Excuse in the jungle when they've taken away the Kindred pick for most of the series. And, of course, Gowie, who got renamed to Goose up in the top lane. So he was the newest addition, I believe, that we hadn't seen him before. So, what were your impressions of, these new players? We've seen Backpack and Stevenator for the majority of the second part of the season. So what do we think of these new incoming players? Like, do they bring sort of the second win to Schism that they wanted to see going forward?
Well, I first want to say that I'm actually really proud of Schism as an org overall, bringing in those new players and being able to perform in playoffs so well. Because, as most people know, NFG had to bring in a new support. We had a lot of roster moves overall, and that's something really difficult to move with. So them being able to bring in these new players and not only have them perform on an individual level, but as a team overall is absolutely awesome. And I'm really proud of them for that.
Yeah, I think... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was going to say fair Daydreams.
Oh, yeah. So I think the players that came in really played clutch. Like, Goose, I think, was the most recent addition, other than the coach. I know that they got a new coach that came in literally that day, I think. But overall, like the org just came together and really stepped up from what they've been showing in like the normal season. And nobody really gave them the time of the day. Everybody, I think everybody guessed like 3-1 or 3-0 last week on the so-called analyst desk. So yeah, no, they definitely showed up to play, and they definitely showed up to prove everybody wrong, and the new players especially.
I agree. I definitely think that between the new pickups and according to an information source I've just been given, the new coach that they brought in, and I definitely think that talking about another coach, you see what it did for Schism, and I think that it definitely showed in the way they adapted to the pick ban phase against Purple Cobras. I think a lot of the Purple Cobra schisms that we saw in the second half of the regular season, where pick bans really put a lot of comfort picks into Purple Cobra's hands, and they weren't really taken out of the norm for their the way their play style and what works for them. But you saw a lot more more adaptive bans going into the set for here in the semis. I mean, you saw the standard, the Renekton ban, keeping that down. And, they shifted away their bans from saying, we're going to lock down Frishin, and then this is what worked against us. They lost game 1 to the Cobras, and, the Kane pick really popped off, so they had to adapt to that. And, switching up what worked for them, letting Stevenator get to the point where we can play some of those, more carry-based mid laners. It was really apparent that both the competence of the players as well as the power of their draft really shifted heavily from when we last saw them. So I think that all of those factors, definitely played a good core into the rebirth of Schism, I guess. But as far as that goes, I don't know. I think it was interesting that it did go to Game 5, and we did have to see the back and forth, adaptations from both teams. And I think that Purple Cobras definitely tried to stick to a lot of the same picks. I don't think they tried to adapt to what Schism was doing. I think they were just convinced they were going to be able to better than you their way through the rest of the set, versus Schism's adaptations, which I think definitely shined throughout the majority of the set. And I think that seeing a lot more flexible picks, seeing No Excuse get pushed around on different jungles and still perform was, a good thing. And I think I definitely want to note that, the bot lane war, which, we didn't talk about as much. I remember in the last podcast we talked mostly about the strength of the jungle top mid in this match, but I think that Tej Backpack really came to light on the Lucian pick. I think we saw 2 games out of Tej on Lucian, and he definitely showed that was a champion he is extremely comfortable on. And I was talking a lot about the Schism going in and these new players, and really not their match against TPR. We saw Tej stole Baron, which was sick. But I wanted to see, is Tej going to be put in the spot where he's going to be able to carry the team? And I think that those 2 games in particular stand out in my mind. The Lucian games are really incredible, but him and No Excuse definitely brought that extra life to the Schism roster that said, hey, we are now a full team. We have a full team of carries. Goose in the top lane. I want to say Goose in the top lane kept Cinco on a leash on a couple of those games. The Aatrox games were absolutely devastating to Cinco Gazer. He was on the back heel for most of those games. So definitely a props to Schism. They definitely came through with a very solid roster, handing Purple Cobras that loss in the Game 5. And that's all my thoughts on it. If you have anything to add, Daydreams, feel free.
I mean, definitely props to Schism. Hey, obviously coming in with the new roster. I mean, I also want to. I don't think Purple Cobras was playing up to their normal level of play. I definitely think that the 5-game set wore on them a little bit more than Schism, which, as you said, bringing in that new coaching staff, I think really played a big part in why they were able to keep their mental going, which is really important for 5-game sets. So I think that overall, it was just really well played by the Schism management to get them ready for this.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to note on is, Skysing, you were talking about how Purple Cobras kind of kept through with their draft, the whole, we're better than you thing. They didn't try to change up their picks a lot. And I think that worked great for them for the second half of this split, and they expected it to do the exact same thing going into playoffs. This was their first playoff match. Schism has already played one set against Raid of Kings. So Purple Cobras goes into the same one. They're like, oh, they just beat Raid of Kings. That's nothing. Raid of Kings was the 6th seed, I believe. And Purple Cobras expects to steamroll them. Frisian had beaten laners with Cho'Gath mid and AP Malphite mid in the second half of the split. So he's just like, okay, whatever. And they try to lock him down. He's like, whatever. And they expect to do the better than you thing. They come in here. Schism comes out swinging. And I think it brought them off guard. And like you said earlier, not only the length of a 5-game set, but the fact that, oh crap, we're losing. We lost a game. We lost 2 games now. That really takes a toll on a team. And that right there has led them to their downfall. You can't go into a set thinking you're going to win. You can have the belief that you can win, but you have to know that you're going to fight for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it actually last week on the podcast. Is momentum is huge in best of 5 series. And that's not English, but whatever. Momentum is it's massive. If you win a game, the first game is so huge in a series because you can play off of that. Even if you lose the next one, you're like, okay, well, we've already won. So obviously these guys aren't unbeatable. It's just we have to fix something that went wrong in Champion Select or about our play, an early games issue. But having that first game win and then continuing to drive that, it's really big for a series.
Definitely agree. Both very good points. Very good brought up. I definitely think that the back and forth battle definitely showed, and Schism coming out on top really showed that they had the mental fortitude to pull it out. So definitely props to them. So covering that game, I definitely agree with a lot of it. So Schism, I think, earned their win for sure. Seeing them in the finals is where they should be. But we're gonna move on now. So we're gonna talk about the other set on the other side of the board. We'll talk about NFG versus White Lotus. And I do believe that we'll be grabbing another set of lips for this, if I'm not wrong. Ooh. Oh, I've just been informed that I got to bring that man in. So we're going to bring him in right now. And we are here with Big Brain Mid of NFG. So,
it's the boy.
We've got him on the desk now to talk about what's gone on, talk about the White Lotus NFG sets. Of course, the 2 people I'm discussing this with are going to be from White Lotus and NFG, so I might get a little bit more insight into that than the other match. But I will lay down a couple of my thoughts as someone who I watched that set over the course. I watched all 5 straight through, and the impression I got was that. I don't know. I think it was really interesting. I think it was interesting seeing White Lotus finally, having to come out into a game 5 situation, being pulled back and forth. I want to say it was what, White Lotus win, NFG win, White Lotus, NFG, White Lotus. I believe that was. Lord, if I remember.
Yeah, it was every blue side. Every blue side.
Gotcha. So you definitely saw the back and forth. White Lotus having to make that battle, and ending up, I think that I think the interesting thing was I think the White Lotus wins were very dominant. I think that the NFG wins seemed to be a lot more clawing up. I don't think there was a point where they had a very decisive win that they said, hey, we beat you, so now we're just going to push for the win. I think that it was definitely a lot more fighting and tooth and nailing on NFG side, and a lot more we have won the game, we White Lotused you on White Lotus' side. And those are my thoughts. And I'm going to hand it over first to my man, Daydreams. Tell me a little bit about that set.
We're stupid because we did ban Timu, which sounds really weird to say. But, legit, though. So, just to give you everybody on the stream some feedback. So, yeah, we come into the set thinking and expecting to see Peggy in the top lane, right? So, all of our prep, all of our coaches' prep, we got, this massive, just huge Google Doc of all of this prep work and what champions they're going to play, all this draft work. And then we get in the game and El Dongarino joins, and we're just like, oh, God. So the first game, he picks the Teemo, and we're just like, okay, yeah, that's his pick, whatever. And we were able to get a good pick into it with the Victor. And then game 2, we left it up, and then they just hard camped top and destroyed us with the split push, and then Teemo became a huge monster late game. And then the 4th game that he picked it, massive draft issue that we won't go into right now because it's heartbreaking. But yeah, just if we'd banned the TMO, I promise you the set would have been so much cleaner and easier with a more common top laner.
Reasonable. So I figured that was going to be a lot of the point of discussion, but I will hand it over to my man Big Brain Mid and catch how that set felt on the other side of the coin. So run me through a little bit.
Yeah, so game 1 was a bit unlucky. We found out like about 15 minutes or like 30 minutes before a game that Arrow couldn't make it because he was like on tilt about something. He said, "Oh, I'm gonna go play some solo queue to D-tilt." We're all like so pissed. And then Peggy's here, and then he says, I gotta go pick up my girlfriend." And we said, "But the game's starting." And then it's this whole confusion. So we ended up putting El Dongarino. So we're in a pro draft, and it's my turn to pick. It's like, "Oh, what do you want mid?" Right? Before I even get to answer, they're like, "All right, we're giving you Galio." No, I have never met a mid laner that was openly wanting to play Galio. Like, I felt like that there was a lot of like things I could have done better that game. Like, I know First Blood, I tunnel visioned on Hottie when he was invading Kairos, and then I didn't even notice that Fuji was on me. Then when I flashed over, he ignited me and I died. And that was a very unlucky first game.
Yeah, the first game, at least for me, from like the coach's side, I had to dip pretty soon after because of some stuff going on with my life. But the first game was rough just because of the whole thing with Arrow and then Peggy, and then we actually had to have Slippery Dingus and El Dongarino in subbing for us. And Slippery Dingus has cut down on his league play quite significantly, has moved more to a management and coach side for NFG. So he comes in and it's rough and we all tilt. And going into game 2, our mental wasn't quite as strong. But from everything I heard, we were able to pull back and gain a lot of confidence after that game 2 win. And from there, we took it to game 5, and it was heartbreaking for us, but still good for the org overall.
Yeah, game 5 was so unlucky. Like, their Nexus was wide open, and I know we had caught we caught your boy Daydreams in the Baron pit because I think he like hex flashed over, took the blast and took the blast plant, and I don't know what happened after that. But we kept getting flanked by Lysandra. Every time Fuji had Lysandra, he'd always flank us, but we'd never respect it. Then we'd lose like the team fight like horribly. Like we killed Daydreams, but then Lysandra came over, like rooted Arrow, then Nocturne came in, and then Ethereal just did right clicked and just destroyed everybody.
Yeah, I also want to shout out Fuji actually because he's known for his assassin gameplay and just being able to pop off of that. But that Lysandra game he really did well on that. So just shout out to him overall.
Yeah, Fuji giveth and taketh away on that game 5 there because he also had a really bad catch that almost cost us the game. But yeah, no, he played really well. That whole series was just insane. It was extremely stressful for me because you guys played a very stylistic choice that we don't do well against. The whole just super crazy early game, mid game, constant fight, never letting us macro. Like there's always something happening. So like props to you guys for actually doing that. But the games where we were able to stall it out and to get into that macro, we were pretty confident in being able to take fights when we wanted to. But yeah, it was a really good series. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was.
It seemed like a pretty enjoyable one. I definitely, I think that and I think it was very interesting. I did want to touch on that a little bit. Sort of the White Lotus, the well-oiled machine that is the White Lotus. That just they don't straight up better than you through the game, but they sort of walk you in circles to force you to play their game. And you say, if we drag you out to late, we just beat you because we're the better team. And I think that did happen. That is what happened, I believe, in the White Lotus wins. That's what happens, I feel, in the majority of White Lotus wins. You can throw some chaos at them. You can hit them with, the 5-6 early kills and say, okay, that's fine. Don't give them too much off of it. We will adapt. We will keep doing our thing. And then eventually we get to the point where we're suddenly back to being ahead of you because, you know, we've got the stronger macro, we've got the better plays, and I think that's what happened. And I think that the NFG wins, like I said, between the Teemo and between the, you know, the chaos that NFG caused early enough to throw White Lotus out of their comfort zone and, you know, force them around the map, force them into these small skirmishes, and capitalize on their end. I think that it definitely showed maybe not a weakness in White Lotus, but definitely a way to force them to adapt. And I remember you told me, we talked a little bit, Daydreams, about, you know, the new strategies that White Lotus has to come out with. And, you know, having to, you know, pull it from these bag of tricks and say, oh, this team has decided that they're going to, you know, skirmish the heck out of us all the way through the rest of the game. We have to change up our style to just say, you know, we can't just castle up and wait till we're better. We have to fight them. So is that sort of, you know, is that one more trick that is in the White Lotus book? Do you think you successfully adapted to the style that NFG brought to you, where you say, hey, fight us, keep fighting us, we're not going to let you play your game because you have to fight us?
I think game 4, we definitely showed that we're not afraid to get down and dirty and brawly. Again, the Teemo legitimately was just so freaking annoying to deal with because we were ready to fight. We were constantly looking for fights, ready to brawl, ready to go. And we were taking really good fights and getting good advantages. Like Aether was huge on Lucian. But you can't do anything when you're blinded, you know, like all that damage that is on our ADC when you're blinded and you just got half health by one shroom, doesn't matter. Like you just nullified that whole advantage that we got. So yeah, I do think that we showed that we can brawl. I do think that we showed that we're not afraid to do early game things. But stupid Teemo, dude.
I just want to say, one of the huge reasons we even won game 4. I know there's just one play where Ethereal thought he could flash in and kill Hottie, I think it was, and he failed. And then we ended up catching Ethereal and we ended up ending the game off of that play. Or we were able to get another Baron or something. I forgot how it went, but he greeted for a flash play on Hottie, and we were able to kill him and pop his GA. Like there were a lot of like unnecessary, like throughout the entire series, like we are always able to get something because somebody was like over pushed, and we're always like be able to like capitalize on a mistake they made. So I don't know if that was like a miscommunication with White Lotus, but like in their comms, like where they should be or not be.
I'm sorry. I don't think I followed that quite correctly. Could you rephrase?
All right. So what I'm saying, was there any like miscommunication of like where everybody should be? Because in the games that we ended up winning, we ended up making picks on like say like Ethereal was like pushed up too much, or like the same thing with Fuji. Like
okay, yeah, okay, got you. Sorry, just brain fart. No, so yeah, like comms were actually super bad in our series. Like we played terribly, but we were able to pick it up when it mattered. Like yeah, I was just literally yelling over people just to stop talking and to follow whatever was going on, you know, to say, okay, look, everybody's calling everything. This is a very stressful situation, but you need to chill. And I definitely think that being the first time that we've been dragged to like a game 5 scenario with all of this pressure mounting and, you know, as finals and everybody's expecting us to win, you know, expecting us to go 3-0 against this NFG lineup, going to a game 5, you know, there's all that stress and everybody's wanting to make a play. Everybody's ready to get a objective. Then yes, we were able to, or sorry, you guys were able to get picks on us that usually wouldn't happen, I feel like, or like small mechanical misplays from teams or from players on the team that normally wouldn't happen, but it did happen in this time. But I do think that our mental was able to just stand the test at the same time. Like we didn't overly panic, and I like me, Burger, and Davey were able to keep everything controlled chaos, I guess would be the good word for it.
Sounds good. I think that it was important, and I think that I definitely saw it too, and I think that, you know, hearing that it was, you know, kind of a too many hands on the steering wheel type deal, and then you know, having to bring it down, having to get to the point where we say, okay, everyone has their own thoughts and ideas in this, but we need to come together as a team and, you know, make unified decisions here without too many dissenting voices. is definitely important for communication there. So definitely a good posture for White Lotus. And I think that's I didn't have anything else to add. I think that we hit on a lot of the points of the set. Shout out to El Dongarino and just that monstrous Teemo play. Getting that out there one more time for the loving fans, for the devoted haters that he's made with that pick. But that's all I have to say on the matter. Anything else to add?
I will say real quick, El Dongarino has only one pick that is better than his Teemo, and that is the Donger himself. But he can only play Heimerdinger if he has 500 ping. That is a true fact from like 2 seasons ago whenever he first was on NFG lineup. His Heimerdinger is clean, but only with 500 ping.
Yeah, I want to shout out to my boy Freshburger. I just want to say good luck against SKZ, and don't let them force Urgot down your throat and pick the Swain. Yeah, that's it.
And I believe that's all we've got for here. Thanks for joining us, Big Brain Mid, for that breakdown. And I think that all we've got left here is to discuss the finals. But again, that was Big Brain Mid, guys. Thanks for joining us. And let's take it a step forward and let's talk about the finals now. Let's talk about Schism White Lotus, which is it may not be the finals you predicted, it may not be the finals we predicted, but it is the finals we're going to have. And we talked about Schism are in their spot, White Lotus battled it out. White Lotus, neither of these teams got to free walk into the finals, so we've definitely seen what it looks like when both of these teams fight. So what kind of fight are we expecting to see going into the finals here? Hit me with your thoughts, Zayfrey.
I would like to start out by saying, in the history of GXPC, even back to the Fight Fire with Funk days, the number 1 seed from playoffs has never won. Last season, it was RDE, yeah? Was that season 4? Okay, so the last 2 seasons, at least since NFG has been here, and I'm pretty sure the first season when I was on a different team, the number 1 seed has never won. They've always get knocked out in the finals in like a 4 or 5 game series. So SKZ, I'm looking at you and I'm knocking on wood right now because I believe, as much as I would like to say NFG only lost because we lost to the best team, keep the tradition alive, make the upset happen. These are my initial thoughts going in. I think SKZ, with the new lineup and the mentality strength that they have for the 5 game series, and they showed losing that first game, they're going to be able to do a lot. White Lotus, they can do a lot as well, but I think SKZ, for me, going to come out on top.
Interesting. I like a lot of it. I like a lot of what you got to say. Give me your thoughts on the match going in. As a player, Daydreams. Tell me a little bit what you're thinking about this.
We're ready, man. We're so ready. Like, after playing a team like NFG, who's just so crazy in the early game and the mid game, like, we want to play a team like Schism that is more standard, more stylistically advantage towards us. I think that we're going to show that we can brawl if needed, and that we can take early wins. And at the same time, I think we're going to show that we can out macro and we can out perform a team in the late game as well, like Schism likes to do. With that being said, I don't think that Schism is going to roll over. I don't think that they're going to make it easy for us. I think that it's going to be a hard-fought battle. I think it's going to go to 5 games. And I think that it's possible even that we would go 3-2 as well. Or Schism would go 3-2 as well. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really good set.
I agree. I like both points. And I think that after seeing the fight that White Lotus had brought to them, and seeing the fight that Schism put out to both of these sets going to Game 5, the adaptations from both teams, there's a lot of similarities of these teams going forward. Both of these teams look like top tier teams, going into this finals. These are definitely, you can say this or that about the 2 strongest teams going forward, but I definitely think that Schism put forward the show. they are definitely making the case that they deserve to be here in finals. And I think that, toe to toe with White Lotus, they have what it takes to go the distance. I agree with, both of those being said. I think that no matter what, we will see a finals that should very well go to Game 5. I think at the very least, and if not,
spicy.
Yeah, if not, I wouldn't. I don't think a 3-0 will happen either way. I think that something very outlandish would have to happen to make a 3-0 go either way. I think a 3-1 at worst, but I don't know. I definitely wanted to break it down a little bit, and I guess maybe not with the White Lotus player, but I wanted to look at the lane matchups, and it's hard to talk about. Again, we have two sets worth of data on 3 of the players on Schism, which is it's considerable. It's still 8 games they played on with these teams, so we've seen the adaptation, we've seen the abilities of these players, but looking across the board, my thoughts, our thoughts on what these lanes will look like going forward. I think the points of interest here will definitely be Freshburger and Goose, and I think both the solo lanes will be the major points of interest here. I think Freshburger versus Goose in the top lane is going to be very interesting because Freshburger, of course, has been a consistent pillar in the top lane, and Goose has most recently knocked down. We saw him take Single Gazer down a peg. We saw him very decidedly win lane on the Aatrox pick, and having being able to go even or ahead in lane throughout the series. So Goose has definitely shown that he is a very competent top laner, and bringing that to Freshburger, who we've seen entire teams throw bodies onto Freshburger and say we're just going to camp you and try to shut you down early, and he manages to come back so often and find himself the ability to come back into the game. So it'll be interesting to see if Schism will go for the same approach. If Schism will try to shut down that top laner, let things fight out as they are, and say Goose can handle you, and keep it as it is. And the mid lane especially, I think Fuji versus Stevenator is going to be very interesting.
Ooh,
if both
that's going to be
if both of those laners
matchup.
don't if they don't default to the utility picks, which I feel like they may not. I feel like we could see something as crazy as Cat versus Akali, which could just
I want
nuts.
to see Sion versus Galio mid. That's what I want.
I'm gonna give that a hard thumbs down. Hard thumbs down. It could happen. Is the really crazy thing, but I'm gonna give it a hard thumbs down. Either way, I definitely think that Sparks are gonna fly in the mid lane. I don't think either of those laners is going to let their pride keep them on utility picks throughout the set. I think one of those laners is gonna get solo killed multiple times, and I don't know who it is really, because I think we've seen Stevenator perform ever since he's joined Schism. He's been a very consistent mid laner. And Fuji has made his legacy as just a great assassin player and a great having the ability to just go in at a moment's notice and make things happen and people just fall. So I think
the replacement of D-Lun, I think Stevenator had some big shoes to fill, because D-Lun was kind of a staple for a long time with SKZ as the guy that's going to pop off. Last split he comes in. Now he's not even in it because he's too good. And he was doing great this split. And now he's no longer on a SKZ roster because I believe he ranked out. Am I correct in saying that? Yeah, he ranked out. And Stevenator comes in and he's able to just hold down the mid lane. Even if he's not the solo carry, he's able to hold it up. And I wanted to give another shout out to the top laner of SKZ as well. Maverick was known for his tanks and being really good in those utility picks, and now he comes in and he's able to pull out something like the Aatrox and just go off on it. Like, having that utility and the variety in that top lane is what I think is going to help SKZ get a lead in this game. At the same time, just like you said, with Fuji and with Freshburger, they can do the exact same thing. We saw Fuji bust out the Lissandra, get off some awesome flanks on NFG. We see Freshburger constantly able to do a tank, able to do hard carries, able to do mages. The variety in these two lanes is going to be astounding, which is why I don't think it's going to necessarily be those solo lanes, because I think both laners on both teams are going to give a huge amount of respect to each other. And I also think that it's all going to come down to those mid-game team fights. which I think are going to be absolutely nutty. Like, the amount of excitement I have for this series is unbelievable. SKZ, since I've had my first interaction with the org, has had my respect. White Lotus, I've known Davy Boy for a long time. I haven't known too many of the other players. Kairos. But White Lotus, obviously this split has popped off. They came out as people who didn't really know them, came in, went without a loss for how long? And then lost, I think, 3 matches throughout the whole split. 2? Okay. And it's going to be insane, honestly.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be insane, and I'm ready. I'm ready for the insanity. I mean, I've kind of been trying to keep quiet just because obviously I'm on White Lotus. I don't want to be like a biased person, but I definitely think that what you guys said about lanes is going to be true. Like Burger and Goose are going to match up well together. Stevenator and Foodie are going to match up well together. I think our bot lane, I mean, again, maybe biased. I think we have a little bit of an edge. I think just because we played longer together. And we have a little bit more synergy with our jungler. But again, it's not, even if we do have an edge, it's not big. They play a very similar style. So what Zayfrey said, I think, is going to really come to be the head. You know, the mid-game team fights and objectives is going to be where the game's bust wide open either way. And then it's going to be up to whether or not another team can stall or not, and if they make mistakes and capitalize and stuff. So it's going to be a really good series.
Sounds good. I definitely agree. Both ends of the table here. I think all of us are looking forward to a very good match. The players are looking forward to a good match. You know, this is definitely the culmination of, you know, all the challenges. You know, Schism has made their ups and downs throughout the regular season. They solidified a roster going into playoffs. They trounced Reign of Kings, who, you know, handed them a handy 2-0 in the regular season. They battled it out with Purple Cobras, and now they're here at the finals. White Lotus, you know, came through. They had their bye. They took the loss to Purple Cobras, turned it around, you know, went the distance with NFG, showed they have the mentality to bounce back, and now they're here at the top to take on Schism. And I think all of us here and all of us watching are looking forward to a great finals. I know I am, so we'll go one more round, one closing line on this final match, and your prediction. Zayfrey.
I would like to say it is the split and the year and the season for upsets, as we've seen across literally the globe for League of Legends. 3-2 SKZ.
All right. Daydreams?
I think it's going to be extremely close irregardless, and I think either team can take a 3-2. I'm not going to call it. It's too close.
Gotcha. Then I guess it falls on me. I think that we are going to see the sparks fly, and I think in the end it's going to be a test of mental above all. And I think that if one team I've seen, you know, do the mental bounce back and have the potential to keep it all together, I think that we are going to see White Lotus emerge victorious here. So I'm going to call 3-2 White Lotus.
I have
and
one
there you have it.
Thing, real quick.
Feel free.
It's going to make him mad, but I want to ask Nick what his predictions are, because he is the only person that has for sure watched every single game this split. He has been our head of production, has watched every single one. Even if he's relatively new to playing the game, I want to see just what his predictions are. Nick, if you don't want to add your microphone, I would be glad to repeat what you say. White Lotus has played really well the entire season. And he thinks they have shown their weaknesses and don't have a big pool of secrets that they can surprise Schism with. He thinks that with Schism's new coach and new lineup, that they could possibly is the word he used, since he couldn't decide between probably and possibly, pull out the 3-2 against SKZ. Or sorry, Schism can pull the 3-2 out against White Lotus.
Just wait until we put our academy players in.
You never know. You got a bench.
They're actually going to sub in Nick to the bot lane for Ethereal with Nick's nutty Ashe.
So we've got our predictions out of the way. We got the finals talked about, and it does eventually culminate to we are looking forward to a very good set. The date and time, of course, not quite set yet, but once those details are in, everybody will know. We will, get it all ready for the finals. But I believe that's all I had on the dissertation here. So I believe our last segment, of course, we will be taking any questions from anybody in the chat. So if anybody in the audience has some questions they would like to answered by one of us, myself, Daydream, Zayfrey, all of us, feel free to ask.
Looking at you.
So I will take a moment or two, take that, and of course.
You have no questions? Weak.
But maybe if no one has any questions, maybe it's all speaking for itself. Really, I think what we want at the end of the day is just a final match, and I think that's what I'm looking forward to. But I think everything will speak for itself at the end of the day.
I have a quick question for chat, just because I know there's at least a decent amount of people still listening in, even if you aren't actively typing in chat. Hit me with either the SKZ or the WL on who you think is going to take the series, if you're actively listening. If not, you're trolling, and I hate you.
You do that.
I don't hate you. I love you.
Let's do a little mini chat vote before we get in the actual game.
1 for SKZ, 2 for SKZ, 1 White Lotus. D's nuts. SKZ. White Lotus, White Lotus. There's 4.
So
I see 4 for White Lotus and 7 for... 4 for White Lotus and 7 for Schism right now.
I think you see the other thing, because
I keep talking backwards. I'm sorry. I don't sleep anymore.
What is math? Listen, I'm the guy that became a cop. You're the guy that's supposed to know this stuff. You're a junior. Come on, dude.
I'm a junior in college. That means I don't sleep at all. There it is. Okay. So St. James actually had a question in chat. Mm-hmm. He said, do we think that there will be any crazy picks that come out?
I did kind of want to touch on that, but I didn't know, between having a player of one team on my end and, having it as it is, I didn't know if I want to talk about maybe, just from the picks we've seen on the sides of Schism and, consistently from White Lotus, did we, think we were going to see any maybe contested picks, going forward, just picking apart a potential, pick ban, I don't want to pull anything from the White Lotus side and say, hey, what are you thinking about banning against Schism? So, they play around that. But, just from what we've seen in the past between these two teams, what, picks do you think these two might end up, maybe not fighting for, but, not wanting to, just hand over to their team because of how one. And I think that a big one I wanted to touch on was definitely going to be both the Lucian and the Akali. I think are going to be major points of contention here. Maybe Akali less so because, Fuji has a very, rotational pool. I don't think he really gravitates towards one champion or another. So I think the Lucian is going to be very interesting to see if that gets left on the table or is going to, see what because both Ethereal and Teej have, shown very strong showings on Lucian throughout the, their series. And, as a champion who himself is very prominent in the early game. And, I think that'll just be a very nice tool to show, hey, this is how we're going to put our lane dominance in the bot lane between, Daydreams and Backpack are two very capable supports of playing super early game aggressive supports. So I think that having that Lucian on the back end is going to be very, a very telling tale to see if that gets through or if it's going to be locked up.
I want Freshburger to bust out the Teemo. I want him to pay homage to El Dongaringo, bust out the Teemo, and pop the hell off.
I will neither confirm or deny.
I also want to see Davy Boy show up this series. I think he's a great team fighter. I want to see him on some sort of carry. I want him to see do something really proactive early game. I want him to bust out something like Camille or Zinzao. Or something that has to be aggressive. I want him to play Zach in homage to me. R.I.P. Zach. That's all I'll say.
I just want someone to play Janna. I don't want. I feel you. I feel your dead champion pool.
Daydreams. Play Janna.
Just play Janna. Do it for me. That's all I need.
More than I.
Tell Fuji to play Janna mid. If Reckless can play Janna, anyone can play Janna. Full AP Janna.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Do it.
But
Skyson and me have a kind of understanding. If I ever pick something that's not a tank, generally, he messages me and says you're in and you should stop. So
I mean, everyone's inting. If you die,
this series is just about who wins less. Really, that's all it is.
I want someone to play the inting Scion build. I think that would be great. I want Jordan to be subbed in for Fuji.
I want both junglers to just mysteriously disappear and have to sub in their coaches as players, and we just
I want both junglers
see a coach
to do
fight.
Nothing but dance in the Baron Pit.
Okay, I don't actually want to see that, but
no, I think it'd be great, and I want
as is. I think we're deviating
there.
from.
They're level 1 the whole time. It comes down to just a smite fight.
All right, I think we're deviating from the point here a little bit as far as champion picks that we expected to see in the series, and I think the Lucian was a major one. Up in the bot lane, I think that Alistar is also going to be a very interesting.
I was just gonna say Alistar.
Backpack and Daydreams have been extremely prevalent Alistar players throughout their set, and they have different fallbacks. I think we see a little more Braum out of Backpack in general, and we see a little more Thresh out of Daydreams. So if the Alistar gets its banned away, then seeing where they deviate from there will be interesting. I think the top lane pools and the mid lane pools are very wide between both players, so you may not pin down one pick between the two of them. And the junglers on both sides, I think that there's places to pinch in both pools, but I think that most of the contested picks we were going to see go back and forth. We may see a lot of AD carries and supports get traded this series. It'll be interesting.
I was serious about my point about Davey, though. I want to see him on something that has to be active early. I want to see him create that, because to me, that's White Lotus's weak point, is the early game. And I want to see him active early and to get a lead for them.
Sounds good. But I think that's all I had. I know we ran this a little deep, and I'm looking forward to getting to those finals. And I think we covered the semis, we covered the finals, covered our predictions. So again, thanks for joining us, guys. And I think that'll help us come to a wrap there. This was the Games XP podcast episode 4, semifinal showdown. And next you see us. Hopefully the finals will have happened. We will get a result, and we'll be able to discuss that. So again, I'm your host, Skyson, and joining me was Zayfrey and Daydreams. So, guys, thanks for joining us, and thanks for being here.
All right, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I believe that's all we've got. So the rest of you watching, have a good night, and we will catch you guys next week.